Welcome to Manager Tools. This is Sarah.
And this is Mark.
Today's cast, Proactive Reporting and the Bricklayer, Part 2 of 2.
This cast answers these questions. How can I keep track of my team's performance? How can I report effectively up to the organization? And how do I balance running my team with communicating upwards?
If you want answers to these questions and more, keep listening.
Results and retention. If you don't know what your expected results are, please ask and then meet them and maybe try to exceed them for the year. How can you do that? Manager Tools believes there's core behaviors that all managers need to engage in to get results. Let us bring our full effective manager training to your organization, where your managers will learn our models and practice those models so that they're armed to achieve and exceed their results expectations. Our training comes with annual licensing and many benefits for sustained learning. Contact Maggie at customerservice@manager-tools.com to get more detail.
Tying all this back to the particular case that we're talking about today, right? That example on that executive that we mentioned, his people knew the status of everything far, far, far better than he did.
They were in the field.
Exactly. And way, way more than corporate headquarters knew. But he, the executive, didn't know it.
Yep.
He felt embarrassed every single time he was questioned about production status, because sometimes leadership asking probing questions that you don't have an answer for makes you look a fool. So every time he was called by headquarters or called into headquarters, another hole in his knowledge was revealed to him and everyone else. And he would then have to go back to his production managers and ask increasingly more questions. Now, not only is he spending more time than he wants to answer questions, he's spending more time figuring out the answers to the questions. And both of these things are taking time away from what he knew he was really supposed to be doing, finding new business and growing the business. What's more, every single minute he spent asking questions was a minute he didn't have, but also a minute for his production managers spent away from managing their production processes. Everyone's time is being taken and wasted by the asking of questions when proactive communication could have solved the problem.
All of this is because his reporting processes were weak. His assistants were not putting the bricks exactly where he needed them to be so that he could do the work that only he could do. You don't want to send your assistants. Certainly don't tell corporate that you need to ask the guy in the field about that. I don't know. So what did we recommend he do? And that's simple, and that's part of the architecture of execution. For the key outputs and metrics of your organization, different everywhere, of course, the effective manager, and you can do this as a frontline manager with your individual contributors, learn this architecture now. The effective manager figures out a cadence, a format, and a medium for her directs to report on the status of the work proactively. You don't want to be asking your people questions. You want them telling you the kinds of things you need to know so that you can answer those questions without asking them.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it. So let's start with cadence. By cadence, we mean how often these reports need to be given you, right? And in many, if not most cases, the cadence that you're going to want them to come to you is weekly. This means if you're a manager, you should be getting detailed status reports from your directs and from their directs about the status of the work that they are doing. If there are several levels of reporting up to you, that's okay. The cadence will be weekly, but perhaps your status this week on Wednesday will only include work status through Monday, or maybe even some cases Friday of last week. And that's fine. It's perfectly fine. This is one of the reasons why large organizations only report on total corporate output numbers quarterly, and they typically do so several weeks after the quarter is closed.
Yeah.
And yes, in some cases, the cadence might be monthly, but beware. If you start to slip against your numbers, corporate or leadership or your boss won't want to wait for monthly and is going to start demanding weekly updates. So best to start at weekly because that way you've got your bases covered. Essentially, your bases are covered.
Exactly. Yeah. And believe me, your people are going to complain about this if you don't have this architecture in place, this proactive reporting architecture in place. Now, look, it's not expected that you know up to the minute numbers, right? So your directs don't have to update you that often. Now, look, there are measuring systems and management systems that do give you up to the minute or at least daily reporting. And we recommend you know those reporting outputs, but we encourage you to take advantage of all the systems that are available to you in your organization. But it always has to be supplemented with human communication because no system is comprehensive enough. I'll never forget sitting in a briefing where a general manager was asked about, well, tell us about this project. And he said, well, it's yellow. And they said, why? And he says, well, I don't know. Well, the system reported as yellow.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the project manager did what she was supposed to do and updated the status, but corporate didn't have the ability or didn't take the time to open up that project and look at what tasks or what issues caused it to be yellow. But you need to have that. And so your proactive reporting can't just say, sure, put it in the system. That'll be good enough. And the system tells you it's yellow. You have to know why it's yellow. Frankly, you have to know why it's green. Although why it's green is generally not the issue. People are like, how's that going? We're green. We're good. Everything's done that's supposed to be done. But yellow or red, then you're going to have to know more details. And again, if you can't suss that out from the systems that your organization provides you, you think to yourself, well, I've got to ask. No, you don't. You've got to tell your people, I want proactive reporting. And if it's not green, if it's white or yellow or red, I want more details so I can explain exactly why that is. So again, we want you to know about those systems, but you've always got to be willing to ask. And look, we love here what DevOps and Agile and Scrum have done for reporting. Some of the information radiator ideas that they have pioneered. We love those things, right? This is a tote board and everybody sees it in their office. It tells you exactly what's going on, what work is done and what work is undone and what the backlog is and so on. We love visible status boards in production facilities, but I've been in a lot of facilities that have visible status boards that are clearly outdated, and that's bad juju. You want to get rid of that as quickly as you possibly can. If you've got a system and you're asking people to update it, hold them accountable for updating it.
Mm-hmm. And folks, when we're saying Wednesday here or Friday or whatever day, we're really only talking in abstracts. Never assign a cadenced reporting deadline without both a date and a time on that date. So if the deadline is Tuesday at 2 p.m., at 2:01, your subordinate manager is late. Give them some feedback. Now, for those of you that know the feedback model, make sure that when you're giving that negative feedback, you bear in mind the fact that you must also have been giving them positive feedback when they meet the deadlines. Please don't just talk to people about deadlines when the deadlines are missed. Also, when the deadlines are successfully met, positive feedback.
We tell people all the time, look, you're doing one-on-ones in order to build trust. If you then don't give positive feedback because you believe, like the rest of the world believes, grossly, wrongly, mistakenly, galactically, stupidly, that, quote, feedback, unquote, is essentially always negative feedback, you will be burning the trust you're building by only giving negative feedback. Now, I have had this conversation with hundreds, maybe even thousands of managers. I say, look, if there were 7 tasks that were supposed to be done this week and they're all done, you could give them 7 bits of positive feedback in your one-on-one. Or you could say, hey, when you're green, essentially encompassing all 7 of those tasks, I really appreciate it. It shows me you're on top of things. Well done. Now, what people say in response, managers have been saying this for years to me. They say, well, but I'm just giving them feedback for doing their job. Well, yes, as we've often said, imagine a world where everybody came to work on time, was always on time for meetings, and met all their deadlines. I got to tell you, that is like the next thing that's going to happen is profits are going to flow like clear mountain streams.
Oh, the heavens open up for me.
Yes,
everyone's
exactly.
just doing exactly what they're supposed to do. It's perfect to me.
Exactly. And managers are loath to do it. And one of the things they say is, well, my people say, well, I'm just doing my job, because there are some people who will say, I only want negative feedback. Well, those people are lying. We've tested this. We tested groups of managers. We said, some of them, you're going to do one-on-ones and then you're going to give no feedback. We compared that to a group that only gave positive feedback, and the group that gave positive and negative feedback, and the group that gave only negative feedback. And the negative feedback group scored last every single time. Now, nobody can say if you only give negative feedback, well, I was just doing my job. That doesn't scan. It doesn't make sense. So you're left with, how am I going to handle positive feedback? And managers say, well, I don't want to do it, because many managers, unfortunately, think that their job is to correct errors, which it's not. Your job is to deliver results and to grow, to maintain retention. And when you get to higher levels as an executive, your job is to grow results and develop future leaders. But those people who say, oh, I'm just doing my job, and say, yep, and I'm just thanking you for it. And I'll always thank you for doing your job and doing it well. And the more you can do, the more I can pay you, the better your retention will be here, the better our relationship will be, and so on. I trust you. I want to build trust with you, so you know I will treat you fairly about your performance. Imagine having a pretty good year and then only hearing about your mistakes on your performance review and then not getting a raise. It'd be like, dude, seriously, why are you treating this way? So, okay. We also say format. By format, we mean what data or information do you want from each part of your organization? It's likely it's different for each part of your organization: engineering, sales, manufacturing, operations, logistics, whatever. And it will change over time, but there should be a core set of numbers, metrics, indicators, many with currency figures associated with them, dollar signs or pound signs or euro signs or what have you, but not all of them. And you can expect, and you should demand in the form of, this is a deliverable, and I expect this on a regular basis at a particular time in this format. You should expect precise reporting on these things. If an item on a report can be a number rather than an opinion or an idea or a thought or a guess, then you should insist on a number whenever you can. Now, we're not suggesting you spend several weekends in a row trying to numerify everything on your report. You don't have to do that. There can be words in the report, particularly if it's related to qualitative issues like why something happened. Why is always a qualitative issue, of course, but insist on a number whenever you can.
The Manager Tools chatbot is now available to anybody. It's the world's best AI for work. If you've ever wanted to ask Manager Tools, now you can, every time you have a work question. If you have to deal with a difficult coworker, set annual goals, get a promotion, ask the chatbot and get a Manager Tools approved answer. Go to chat.manager-tools.com to try the chatbot and sign up for free.
Okay, so that takes us through now cadence and format, and now we're on to medium. Reporting cannot be verbal. It must be written. The manager or executive who takes verbal reports and then has to write them down in order to present them is essentially doing the job of the bricklayer's assistant. When we say written, it might be in a corporate reporting system, or it might be a one-page document online, or a self-created formatted document in another format. There must essentially be a written historical record of what was reported, which, of course, is a written historical record of what was done.
Yeah, and I'll go a little bit further. I know some of you hear written, and unfortunately, thanks to the scourge of email, you immediately jump to email, but you cannot allow a proactive reporting system to simply be an email. It can come in the email, but the email must be formatted, because we're talking about how your business is running. If you're a general manager or an operating company lead or vice president or whatever, if you have a P&L, you can't just be reading emails and extracting information out of that. You could choose to get the report in an email, but that email must be formatted. Okay. I particularly would say I would rather have attachments because I'm going to keep those attachments in files and I don't want to have to move emails around. And oftentimes emails have other things in them. I could see where you could create a pretty rigorous email format. And if people followed it, that's fine. But generally having a separate document that the email refers to that essentially is the report, we think works better. Now look, something else too. A lot of times we give managers guidance and they say, oh, I've got to do this bunch of stuff to make it possible for that. Yes, in many cases that's true. And we always apologize for that. Although much like the Bricklayer's comment about having to terminate a bricklayer, terminate an assistant. Yeah. Would, the time it takes to replace the assistant is still, including that time, is still less than what it would cost if both of them were inefficient at their job. And in the same way, when we tell you you're going to have to spend some time doing things, the increase in efficiency and effectiveness after the fact is well worth it. But in this case, you don't necessarily need to create these forms yourself for 3 reasons. First, corporate might already have something that works perfectly, or you can modify it. And by the way, corporate says this is the form they want. Don't hesitate to modify it for your people so you can get more information that corporate wouldn't necessarily know to ask. Okay. Second, you might know someone who does something like what you do, and you can steal and modify theirs. Gosh, I would suspect that in the Manager Tools community, you could find somebody. You could ask around, ask 20 of your friends. Anybody do something similar to this? And anybody got some reporting? Maybe it's not their form, but maybe it's their corporation's form that they know a friend of theirs uses. That's fine. Don't try to create something from scratch. Find a template somewhere.
I was thinking, Mark, of the Manager Tools work management spreadsheet.
Exactly. We have one and we've shared it. So please, if you don't know about it, ask us and we'll share it with you. It's got all kinds of logic built into the Google Sheet. Super easy. And the third reason is you can tell your directs what information you want to know and tell them to create the medium or the document. Okay. Now, if 5 people are all doing the same thing, you could say, hey guys, I want you all to spend 15 or 20 minutes sometime in the next 72 hours. And I want you to come back to me with what you think the report should say. Now, person A is going to give you maybe 75% and person B is going to give you 75%. And 50% of theirs is going to be the same, but some of the stuff is going to be different. Pick and choose for them. And by the way, tell them you want them thinking about this, about reporting, because this is a part of their job. It's not just doing their job that matters. It's also reporting on it. And they might as well have a hand in the creation of the report that is going to reflect their job. And they're also going to be probably a little more sensitive than you and a lot more sensitive than corporate about how long this takes to create. There are times when we've all had the experience of getting a form. I certainly know this is true in a mortgage application process. The amount of redundancy is unbelievable. It's incredible. Whenever you get involved with banks, it's redundancy in the extreme. 6 different forms, and the top third of every form is the same with all the information, but it's not copied over. And so you have to write your address and your phone number and your bank account number on 5 different forms. Corporate needs them for different reason. So they're going to be, the people who create the form are going to be sensitive about giving you enough, but also not so much they spend all their time reporting.
Yeah.
Sarah, I want to mention one other thing. There's an old joke about this, which I've always loved. The software developer, I say software developer, but it happens in virtually every job. When managers start insisting on proactive reporting, one of the fundamentals of an architecture of execution, it happened to me. I heard a software developer say this to his manager. The manager says, okay, great. He asked, hey, is the code done? Yeah, it's done. Okay, but I don't have it and I need to have it to give it to this other guy. He's going to do the next module or he's got to test it or whatever. So you got to report that it's done and that it's been uploaded to the code database or whatever. And the software developer said clear as day, do you want me to write code or do you want me to report on the code? And the manager was the coolest answer ever. He said, yes, meaning, no, you can't just do one and you're done and move on to the next thing. You have to do both. And a lot of people, technical people more often than not, but plenty of people in legal and HR and operations and so on are like, yeah, that's extra work. And you actually say, no, it's the work. And you have been doing less than all of the work. You may think this is extra, but you're only doing 80 or 90% of the task. The other 20 or 10% is the reporting of the work, because human organizations exist to allow specialization of labor. But no one person's work is by itself complete enough for the organization to be successful. We work with other people. We have to notify other people about what's going on. And in this particular case, the bricklayer example, or the mid-level executive example, more junior people who are closer to the work are the people who should be reporting on it because they know it. And your time is valuable enough that you shouldn't have to be asking.
Exactly. Yeah, folks, you know the Manager Tools feedback model. If you don't know it, then go back and listen to that. But yes, if you're going to set up all these processes, all these systems to support you, you must hold your people accountable for reporting their work.
Yep.
Okay. So let's wrap it all up. The job of a manager is busy enough without having to go get information that you need from people whose job it is to know, because it's their job to actually do
it.
That thing. Exactly. Do not let yourself be the one asking all the questions and having all the questions asked of you, and be crunched in the middle, being squeezed without receiving the information you need to answer the questions you must answer on the spot. Instead, create proactive reporting based on cadence, format, and medium, and hold your subordinate managers or individual contributors accountable for keeping you up to date at all times. That way, when corporate comes calling, you can talk specifically and accurately about everything you're responsible for. And ultimately, because you've proven you know your business well, they will stop asking questions. They'll trust you know what's happening.
Yeah, this actually solves two problems. The proactive reporting concept, this architecture of execution, not only keeps you from having to ask questions because it's being done to you proactively, and so you can passively accept it, but because you'll be knowledgeable, you'll get asked less questions. It helps on the front end and on the back end, and both of those things give you more time to do what you're supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And on all of that means, folks, all that means you can get back to results and retention, or if you're an executive, growing results and developing future leaders for your organization.
Exactly.
Alrighty. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Sarah. That was fun.
Thank you so much, everyone. That's all for this week. Join us next week as we cover a brand new topic. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to follow, rate, and review our podcast. It keeps more people finding us and the conversation going. Have a good one.